Alrighty guys, it is officially October, which means it's time to go through my most anticipated releases. So I've got 22 that I'm going to be going through and reading the synopsis of. They are in alphabetical order, so not in order by publication date or anything, but right at the end of the clip, I will have all 22 that I listed, as well as some like honorable mentions that are listed by publication date. So if you just want to see what books are releasing on what day, you're more than welcome to just skip to that. But as you can see, I'm already in my like festive autumn mood. I've got my candle going. I've got my like autumn colors on. I absolutely love the autumn and the fall, even though I live in Texas and it's like 90 degrees outside. I don't care. I'm just pretending. In spirit, it's fall right now. All right, so first up we have Best Hex Ever by Nadia El-Fassi. This is a romance, but it looks like it's got some potentially witchy vibes as well, so paranormal romance. As a skilled kitchen witch, Dina Whitlock knows her way around a pastry recipe. In fact, she runs her very own London cafe, serving magic-infused pastries for her loyal customers. But only a select few friends know about her magical abilities or the hex that has plagued her love life. It's hard to fall in love when your partner is guaranteed to have a string of bad luck the second they start to have feelings for you. Scott Mason is back from traveling the world and is excited to begin his new job as a curator at the British Museum. After leaving London to heal from a brutal breakup 2 years ago, Scott only now realizes how much he missed out on. Now that his best friend's wedding is right around the corner, Scott is determined to be the most amazing best man ever. But he doesn't expect to be bewitched by the maid of honor, who also happens to be the owner of his new favorite cafe, and, more surprisingly, a witch? After a weekend in the countryside full of peculiar hedge mages, palm readings by candlelight, and a midnight Halloween ritual, there's no denying the chemistry between them. But there's just one problem. The hex still holds, and Dina knows that Scott is in danger. In the past, she's always cut her losses, but this time is different. Scott could be the one. Will Dina be able to undo the hex before it's too late? Alright, so this ended up on the list because I love a seasonal romance. Like, I just do. I've already got Wildfire picked out to read in November because, even though it's already launched, so Wildfire has already launched, but I've got it picked out for November because it's those fall vibes. So a seasonal romance is so much fun. I also know that I'm going to be getting this in my Illumicrate Afterlight box, so of course I had to go on the list because it's coming in one of my book box subscriptions. Best Hex Ever by Nadia El-Fassi publishes on October 1st. Next up is The Bitter End by Donne. This is a YA mystery thriller. The trip of a lifetime might be the death of them all. The students of LA's elite Warner Prep can't wait for their senior excursion. 5 days of Instagrammable adventure in one of the world's most exclusive locations. This is not your average field trip. Which is why 8 students can't believe their bad luck when they end up on a digital detox in an isolated Colorado ski chalet. Their epic trip is panning out to be an epic bore, until their classmates start dropping in a series of disturbing deaths. The message is clear. This trip is no accident. And when the blizzard strikes, secrets are revealed, betrayals are exposed, and survival is at stake in a race to the bitter end. There's something about a locked door mystery that I absolutely love, and I haven't read a YA mystery in a while. I think the last YA murder mystery that I read actually was the Carrie McManus one. So I saw this, it's got that added element of a blizzard, and I don't know, probably because of the season, but I was just like, this sounds really good, and I'm really intrigued, and I'm ready for a locked door mystery. So this is a good YA mystery thriller to have on the list, especially for October and moving into the winter seasons. The Bitter End by Donne publishes on October 15th. Next up is The Bog Wife by Kay Chronister. This is an adult gothic horror. Since time immemorial, the Hadsley family has tended to the cranberry bog. In exchange, the bog sustains them. The staunch seasons of their life are governed by a strict covenant that is renewed each generation with the ritual sacrifice of their patriarch, and in return, the bog produces a bog wife. Brought to life from vegetation, this woman is meant to carry on the family line. But when the bog fails, or refuses, to honor the bargain, the Hadsleys, a group of discordant siblings still grieving their mother who mysteriously disappeared years earlier, face an unknown future. Middle child Winna, summoned back to the dilapidated family manor just as her marriage is collapsing, believes the Hadsleys must abandon their patrimony. Her siblings are not so easily persuaded. Eldest daughter Etta, de facto head of the household, seeks to salvage the compact by desecrating it. Younger son Percy retreats into the wilderness in a dangerous bid to summon his own bog wife. And as youngest daughter Nora takes desperate measures to keep her warring siblings together, fledgling patriarch Charlie uncovers a disturbing secret that casts doubt over everything the family has ever believed about itself. So I read the synopsis and it immediately reminded me of the Margaret Atwood short story that I read in college called The Bog Man. Like immediate goosebumps. But then I also like the fact that this very much seems it's going to be this interwoven story of all the siblings, and we're going to get a lot of POVs, and that's the kind of story that I like, where we get all these connected pieces telling a larger plot. So I'm very excited about this, and I do have this on my seasonal spooky challenge. That is a readathon that I am doing with this creator that I'll be mentioning kind of throughout the video. And if you're interested in my full TBR for the seasonal spooky challenge, then you can go ahead and check it out in the description below. The Bog Wife by Kay Chronister publishes on October 1st. Next up is The City in Glass by Nghi. This is a novella, it is adult, and it is fantasy with like a smidgen of romance. I don't know that I would call it romantasy though. The demon Vitrine, immortal, powerful, and capricious, loves the dazzling city of Israel. She has mothered, married, and maddened the city and its people for generations, and built it into a place of joy and desire, revelry and riot. And then the angels come, and the city falls. Vitrine is left with nothing but memories and a book containing the names of those she has lost, and an angel, now bound by her mad, grief-stricken curse, to haunt the city he burned. She mourns her dead and rages against the angel she longs to destroy. Made to be each other's devastation, angel and demon are destined for eternal battle. Instead, they find themselves locked in a devouring fascination that will change them both forever. Together, they unearth the past of the lost city and begin to shape its future. But when war threatens Israel and everything they have built, Vitrine and her angel must decide whether they will let the city fall again. The City in Glass is both a brilliantly constructed history and an epic love story of death and resurrection, memory and transformation, redemption and desire strong enough to burn a world to ashes and build it anew. So this is that like Shakespearean, even though Shakespeare frankly is not my favorite, don't come for me. But it's got that like celestial, star-crossed lovers in this like story that's bound to be unrequited. Like they're not going, I don't know, in my head, they're not going to end up together at the end, but also they like kind of are through memory and hope and love and things. I don't know. I'm putting a lot onto a blurb, but I already love this. I love the fact that Vitrine is already calling him her angel in the blurb. Like it just sounds fascinating and so cool. And it's also novella, so it's going to be a shorter read. Everything about this, I was just like, as soon as this publishes, I will be snagging it and I will be reading it. This is everything. So I don't know anything about this author. I don't know if it's a debut, but I can say based on how beautiful this cover is and based on the blurb and just what I know I like reading, like, can I say it's a potential 5 stars from me? I don't know. If it's written well, like, I think this might be one of my favorite books in October. The City in Glass by Nghi publishes on October 1st. Next up is A Dark and Secret Magic by Wallis Kinney. This is an adult paranormal that feels kind of contemporary, but it's definitely got mystery and romance mixed in here. Hecate Goodwin, Kate to her friends, has curated the perfect life as a hedge witch, living in a secluded cottage with only a black cat for company. She spends her days foraging herbs from the Ipswich forest, gardening, and creating tinctures to sell at the apothecary she owns. Most evenings pass without her speaking to another human being, an arrangement she quite prefers. Kate's solitude is thrown into disarray when her older sister, Miranda, reaches out and asks her to host their coven's annual Halloween gathering. The day marks the beginning of the new year for witches and is also Kate's birthday. The pressure from her coven to make the evening memorable mounts as the event draws near. To complicate things further, a handsome man from Kate's past turns up at her cottage, asking for sanctuary. It is Kate's duty as a hedge witch to honor this request, much to her dismay. Matthew Cypher is no ordinary lost soul. He's a practitioner of forbidden magic who's tricked Kate once before, and her guard is up. As she juggles Matthew's arrival and the preparations for Halloween, Kate comes across an old tome shrouded in dark magic. She is horrified when she realizes the blood-red inscription is written in familiar handwriting, her recently deceased mother's. Afraid to even touch the dark magic her mother secretly studied, Kate can turn only to Matthew for help. Her idealized memory of her mother begins to distort, and as she and Matthew grow closer, Kate has to reevaluate whom she can really trust. A Dark and Secret Magic is a celebration of the Halloween season and a love letter to anyone who drinks pumpkin spice in August and carries the spirit of a witch inside their heart all year long. I'm a fan of all things witchy, especially during like the fall season and Halloween. But what I really love about this is that it feels like it's going to touch on those themes and threads of family, of tradition. It's going to weave the past and the present through the storyline. So there's a lot of this that I'm really excited for. And of course, it does seem like it's perfect for spooky season. A Dark and Secret Magic by Wallis Kinney publishes on October 8th. Next up is Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Wells, and this is a young adult gothic horror. Once upon a time, Andrew had cut out his heart and given it to this boy, and he was very sure Thomas had no idea that Andrew would do anything for him. Protect him, lie for him, kill for him. High school senior Andrew Perot finds refuge in the twisted fairy tales that he writes for the only person who can ground him to reality, Thomas Rye, the boy with perpetually ink-stained hands and hair like autumn leaves. And with his twin sister, Dove, inexplicably keeping him at a cold distance upon their return to Wickwood Academy, Andrew finds himself leaning on his friend even more. But something strange is going on with Thomas. His abusive parents have mysteriously vanished, and he arrives at school with blood on his sleeve. Thomas won't say a word about it, and shuts down whenever Andrew tries to ask him questions. Stranger still, Thomas is haunted by something, and he seems to have lost interest in his artwork. Whimsically macabre sketches of the monsters from Andrew's wicked stories. Desperate to figure out what's wrong with his friend, Andrew follows Thomas into the off-limits forest one night and catches him fighting a nightmarish monster. Thomas's drawings have come to life and are killing anyone close to him. To make sure no one else dies, the boys battle the monsters every night. But as their obsession with each other grows stronger, so do the monsters, and Andrew begins to fear that the only way to stop the creatures might be to destroy their creator. Alright, so if this beautiful cover wasn't enough, the comparisons that my mind started making as I was reading this blurb absolutely sold this for me. Like, it's giving the MMC from Starling House by Alex E. Harrow combined with the boy from Wednesday, the TV show that like did all the drawings, but then the drawings kind of came to life and would scratch him and stuff. Like, that's what I'm envisioning, like that artistic style with the art that's coming to life mixed with the sword fighting and the monsters in Starling House. I don't know, it sounds epic and I cannot wait to read this. Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews publishes on October 29th. Next up, we have For She Is Wrath by Emily Varga, and this is a young adult retelling. 364 days. Framed for a crime she didn't commit, Dania counts down her days in prison until she can exact revenge on Mazine, the boy responsible for her downfall, the boy she once loved, and still can't forget. When she discovers a fellow prisoner may have the key to exacting that vengeance, a stolen Jinn treasure, they execute a daring escape together and search for the hidden treasure. Armed with dark magic and a new identity, Dania enacts a plan to bring down those who betrayed her and her family, even though Mazine stands in the way. But seeking revenge becomes a complicated game of cat and mouse, especially when an undeniable fire still burns between them, and the power to destroy her enemies has a price. As Dania falls deeper into her web of traps and lies, she risks losing her humanity to fight for vengeance, and her heart to the only boy she's ever loved. Alright, I love the title, I love the cover, I'm hooked. I'm pretty sure this is a retelling of another canonical text, but I just can't remember quite off the top of my head. But super excited for this one, and I am getting this one in a book box subscription, so it had to be on the list. For She Is Wrath by Emily Varga publishes on October 29th. Next up is A Grim Reaper's Guide to Catching a Killer by Maxie Dara, and this is a paranormal mystery thriller. Kathy Valence is 42, mid-divorce, and pregnant with her ex's baby. She's also a modern-day Grim Reaper employed by Scythe, secure collection, yielding, and transportation of human essences. But frankly, that's the easiest part of her life right now. Or at least it was, until her latest client's soul goes missing. When she finally tracks down 17-year-old Connor Ortiz, he angrily denies he died of natural causes, despite what his file says. He insists that someone at Scythe murdered him, and he demands Kathy find out who and why. Kathy has only 45 days to figure out what happened to Connor and help him move on before the boy's soul is doomed to roam the earth as a ghost forever. She's forced to rely on the help of her retired mentor, her almost ex-husband, and some sneaky moves by Connor himself. This is the wildest case of her career, and one wrong move could cost Kathy her job, not to mention her life. Okay, so this one sounds totally different from anything else that I've read, and I was like, this sounds, I don't know, like it just sounds heartwarming. I realize it's a murder mystery, but there's something about it that I'm like, I feel like it's going to squeeze my heart. So that is what put this one on the list. A Grim Reaper's Guide to Catching a Killer by Maxie Dara publishes on October 8th. Next up, we have Heir by Sabaa Tahir, and this is a fantasy young adult. An orphan, an outcast, a prince, and a killer who will bring an empire to its knees. Growing up in the Kagari slums, Aiz has seen her share of suffering. An old tragedy fuels her need for vengeance, but it is love of her people that propels her, until one hot-headed mistake lands her in an inescapable prison, where the embers of her wrath ignite. Banished from her tribe for an unforgivable crime, Saoirse is a down-on-her-luck tracker who speaks to the earth, air, and water to trace her marks. Destitute, she agrees to hunt down a killer who has murdered children across the empire. All she has to do is carry out the job and get paid. But then, she falls for a charismatic and inconvenient fugitive who keeps getting in her way. Quill is the crown prince of the empire, nephew of a famed and venerated empress, but he's loath to pick up the mantle when his aunt steps down. As the son of the most hated emperor in the history of his people, he, better than anyone, understands that power corrupts. When a vicious new enemy threatens the survival of the empire, Quill must ask himself if he can rise above his tragic lineage and be the heir his people need. Beloved storyteller Sabaa Tahir masterfully interweaves the lives of three young people as they grapple with the burden of power, the treachery of love, and the devastating consequences of unchecked greed. Get ready for a dark and breathless journey that will captivate readers and that may cost these young people their lives, and their hearts, literally. I have been meaning to pick up a Sabaa Tahir for the longest time. I mean, her books are books that have been on my TBR for ages, and so I am so excited at the prospect of this one, not only because it sounds absolutely fabulous and right up my alley, but also because I'm getting this in a book box subscription. So for that reason alone, like, this goes to the top of my TBR list. I absolutely will be picking this one up, and I'm so excited for this book. Heir by Sabaa Tahir publishes on October 1st. Next up is Inheritance of Scars by Crystal Seitz. This is a mythology folklore retelling, and it is young adult. Never go beyond the staved church. Within Tiverton Forest, bloodthirsty monsters known as Draugr lurk behind every tree, and secrets run through the soil like twisted roots. When her grandmother vanishes into the forest, Astrid won't let Crohn's disease get in the way of finding her. But in searching for her lost loved one, Astrid soon uncovers an even greater mystery. A conflict that's haunted her village and family for generations. An ancient blood oath her ancestor made to protect them. A deadly Draugr imprisoned for centuries, who Astrid accidentally awakens. Newly revived, Soren first mistakes Astrid for her ancestor, his ex-lover turned enemy. Astrid can't tell if he would rather kill her or kiss her, but Soren knows the forest better than anyone, and Astrid quickly realizes that she'll need his help to rescue her grandmother. The deeper they ventured into Tiverton, the closer Astrid gets to the cold, alluring Soren and the truth behind her grandmother's disappearance. To save her home, a dark ritual must be performed before midwinter, and only Astrid can fulfill her ancestor's blood oath, or break it. That is, if Soren, or the forest, doesn't break Astrid first. I'm a sucker for mythology and folklore, so anytime I come across something that sounds interesting that has a retelling to it, it's going to go on the list. I am super excited to add this Norse mythology inspired tale. I love that we also get this concept of family, we get this concept of familial secrets and ancestry mixed in with kind of a forbidden romance. So I think this is going to be fabulous. Inheritance of Scars by Crystal Seitz publishes on October 1st. Next up is Legend of the White Snake by Sher, and this is another mythology folklore retelling that is young adult. When Prince Chien was a boy, a white snake bit his mother and condemned her to a slow, painful death. The only known cure is an elusive spirit pearl, or an antidote created from the rare white snake itself. Desperate and determined, Qian travels to the city of Changel, where an oracle predicted he would find and capture a white snake. 7 years ago, Jin, a white snake in the West Lake, consumed a coveted spirit pearl, which gave him special powers, including the ability to change into human form. In Changel, Qian encounters an enigmatic but beautiful stable boy named Jin. The two are immediately drawn to each other, but Jin soon realizes that he is the white snake Qian is hunting. As their feelings grow deeper, will the truth about Jin's identity tear them apart? On top of the fact that we have another beautiful cover, and on top of the fact that this is another mythology and retelling, I just think this sounds like such a lovely story. It sounds as though it's going to be super character driven, and I especially am a fan of character driven stories. So we'll get the mythology and the folklore, we'll get a little bit of a world build, but this is truly, I feel like, going to rely upon the characters themselves and their personal journeys and their perspectives and perceptions of the world, and I just think that's going to be a really lovely story to read. Legend of the White Snake by Sher publishes on October 15th. Next up, we have Make the Season Bright by Ashley Herring Blake. This is quite obviously a seasonal romance. It's been 5 years since Charlotte Donovan was ditched at the altar by her ex-fiancé, and she's doing more than okay. Sure, her single mother never checks in, but she has her strings ensemble, the Rosalind Quartet, and her life in New York is a dream come true. As the holidays draw near, her ensemble mate, Sloane, persuades Charlotte and the rest of the quartet to spend Christmas with her family in Colorado. It is much cozier and quieter than Manhattan, and it would guarantee more practice time for the quartet's upcoming tour. But when Charlotte arrives, she discovers that Sloane's sister Adele also brought a friend home, and that friend is none other than her ex, Brighton. All Brighton Fairbrook wanted was to have the holliest, jolliest Christmas, and try to forget that her band kicked her out. But instead, she's stuck pretending like she and her ex are strangers, which proves to be difficult when Sloane and Adele's mom signs them all up for a series of Christmas dating events. Charlotte and Brighton are soon entrenched in horseback riding and cookie decorating, but Charlotte still won't talk to her. Brighton can hardly blame her after what she did. After a few days, however, things start to slip through. Memories, music, the way they used to play together, Brighton on guitar, Charlotte on her violin, and it all feels painfully familiar. But it's all in the past and nothing can melt the ice in their hearts, right? I mean, it between the author and the cover and the seasonal romance, absolutely had to go on the list. It's publishing in October, so not the best read for spooky season. I'll definitely be holding this until December, but I'm so excited for this book, and I will also be getting it in one of my book box subscriptions. Make the Season Bright by Ashley Herring Blake publishes on October 1st. Next up is Model Home by Rivers Solomon, and this is an adult horror. The three Maxwell siblings keep their distance from the lily-white gated enclave outside Dallas where they grew up. When their family moved there, they were the only black family in the neighborhood. The neighbors acted nice enough, but right away bad things, scary things, the strange and the unexplainable, began to happen in their house. Maybe it was some cosmic trial, a demonic rite of passage in the upper middle class. Whatever it was, the Maxwells, steered by their formidable mother, stayed put, unwilling to abandon their home, terrors and trauma be damned. As adults, the siblings could finally get away from the horrors of the home, leaving their parents all alone in the house. But when news of their parents' death arrives, Esri is forced to return to Texas with their sisters, Eve and Emmanuel, to reckon with their family's past and present, and to find out what happened while they were away. It was not a natural death for their parents, but was it supernatural? Rivers Solomon turns the haunted house story on its head, unearthing the dark legacies of segregation and racism in the suburban American South. Unbridled, raw, and daring, Model Home is the story of secret histories uncovered, and of a queer family battling for their right to live, grieve, and heal amid the terrors of contemporary American life. I can't tell you how highly anticipated this novel is for me. I think that it is going to touch on the very real, very current, very systemic horrors that are happening in contemporary American life. I live in Texas. I don't live very far from Dallas. And so I think that this is really going to dig into those rooted Southern hostilities. I have also picked this for my seasonal spooky challenge as one of my TBR reads. Model Home by River Solomon publishes on October 1st. Next up is My Kind of Trouble by L.A. Schwartz, and this is a romance. Conwoman Harmony Hale has sold lies up and down California for years, never looking back at her crafty scams or one-night stands. Now she's come to Brookville, California, with her sights set on its wealthy mayor, the man who stole her father's music streaming algorithm and ruined his life. Harmony is finally ready to take him down, with her trusty con of selling a non-existent music festival. All she needs is the cooperation of the man who owns the potential festival site. Autistic librarian and piano teacher Preston Jones spends his days fighting book challengers trying to shut down his library programs. He's responsible for raising his selectively non-speaking little sister and needs to focus on keeping his job. He doesn't have time for a romance like the ones in his books, and certainly none for the brassy festival promoter who wants to use his land for her Coachella North. Preston sees things in black and white, and he sees Harmony, amazing curves, flashy smile, and all, as nothing but trouble. But when Harmony promises to help him win the public over and save his youth programs, Preston finds himself wondering if this hustler with a heart of gold might be the someone he's been waiting for. Soon things are getting steamy in the stacks, and with her con coming to a crescendo, Harmony needs to choose revenge and running again, or the happy ending she never saw coming. Romance readers and musical theater fans alike will adore this steamy, gender-swapped homage to the Music Man. Okay, please let this be just the cutest story ever. I am a librarian myself. I'm a sucker for anything that has a librarian lead. And of course, our MMC is a librarian. I love the fact that he's also taking care of his younger sister and that our MMC is a con woman. Like, this just sounds so cute and kind of out there. And again, I'm excited to read this one. My Kind of Trouble by L.A. Schwartz publishes on October 8th. Next up is The Scholar and the Last Fairy Door by H.G. Parry, and this is an adult historical fantasy. Camford, 1920. Gilded and glittering, England's secret magical academy is no place for Clover, a commoner with neither connections nor magical blood. She tells herself she has fought her way there only to find a cure for her brother Matthew, one of the few survivors of a fairy attack on the battlefields of World War I, which left the doors to fairy country sealed, the study of its magic banned, and its victims cursed. But when Clover catches the eye of golden boy Alden Lennox Fontaine and his friends, doors that were previously closed to her are flung wide open, and she soon finds herself enmeshed in the seductive world of the country's magical aristocrats. The summer she spends in Alden's orbit leaves a fateful mark. Months of joyous friendship and mutual study come crashing down when experiments go awry and old secrets are unearthed. Years later, when the fairy seals break, Clover knows it's Camford, 1920. Gilded and glittering, England's secret magical academy is no place for Clover, a commoner with neither connections nor magical blood. She tells herself she has fought her way there only to find a cure for her brother Matthew, one of the few survivors of a fairy attack on the battlefields of World War I, which left the doors to fairy country sealed, the study of its magic banned, and its victims cursed. But when Clover catches the eye of golden boy Alden Lennox Fontaine and his friends, doors that were previously closed to her are flung wide open, and she soon finds herself enmeshed in the seductive world of the country's magical aristocrats. The summer she spends in Alden's orbit leaves a fateful mark. Months of joyous friendship and mutual study come crashing down when the experiments go awry and old secrets are unearthed. Years later, when the fairy seals break, Clover knows it's because of what they did, and she knows that she must seek the help of people she once called friends, and now doesn't quite know what to call, if there's any hope of saving the world as they know it. This is giving me like this weird mashup of Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies and the Atlas Six. Like, it seems as though it's going to be a really in-depth look into the darker side of folklore and especially like fairy lore, but have an academic setting to it, mixed with the fact that this is historical, taking place after like an alternate envisioning of World War I. I think there's so much that's going to happen here, but if it's done right, I truly think this could be an extraordinary novel. The Scholar and the Last Fairy Door by H.G. Parry publishes on October 22nd. Next up is A Song to Drown Rivers by Liang, and this is another young adult fantasy retelling. Chishi's beauty is seen as a blessing to all the villagers of Yue. convinced that the best fate for a girl is to marry well and support her family. When Chi draws the attention of the famous young military advisor, Fan Li, he presents her with a rare opportunity to use her beauty as a weapon, one that could topple the rival neighboring kingdom of Wu, improve the lives of her people, and avenge her sister's murder. All she has to do is infiltrate the enemy palace as a spy, seduce their immoral king, and weaken them from within. Trained by Fan Li in everything from classical instruments to concealing emotion, Chi hones her beauty into the perfect blade. But she knows Fan Li can see through every deception she masters, the attraction between them burning away any falsehoods. Once inside the enemy palace, Chi finds herself under the hungry gaze of the king's advisors, while the king himself shows her great affection. Despite his gentleness, a brutality lurks, and Chi knows she can never let her guard down. But the higher Chi climbs in the Wu court, the farther she and Fan Li have to fall. And if she is unmasked as a traitor, she will bring both kingdoms down. Okay, so this very much reminds me of Qingyan and Wincha in Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which immediately I was excited by. This book popped up on my radar whenever Fairy Loot announced that they would be doing an exclusive edition. The exclusive edition looks stunning, and this is already such a stunning cover. So I'm excited to read it, and if I really like it, I might be picking up that exclusive edition. But this is like, I just have so many anticipated reads in October, and I have so many that I'm expecting to be like phenomenal novels. Like, truly, again, I'm so excited about this, and I'm so excited about the retelling here. A Song to Drown Rivers by Liang publishes on October 1st. Had to do a puppy love break. Oh, yes, sir. All right. Next up is Sorcery in Small Magics by Maiga Doocy, and this is an adult fantasy romance. Leovander Lovage is a master of small magics. He can summon butterflies with a song, or turn someone's hair pink by snapping his fingers. Such minor charms don't earn him much admiration from other sorcerers, or his father, but anything more elaborate always blows up in his face, which is why Leo vows years ago to never again write powerful magic. That is, until a mix-up involving a forbidden spell binds Leo to obey the commands of his longtime nemesis, Sebastian Grimm. Grimm is Leo's complete opposite, respected, exceptionally talented, and an absolutely insufferable curmudgeon. The only thing they agree on is that getting caught using forbidden magic would mean the end of their careers. They need a counterspell, and fast. But Grimm casts spells. He doesn't undo them. And Leo doesn't mess with powerful magic. Chasing rumors of a powerful sorcerer with a knack for undoing curses, Leo and Grimm enter the Unquiet Wood, a forest infested with murderous monsters and dangerous outlaws alike. To dissolve the curse, they'll have to uncover the true depths of Leo's magic, set aside their long-standing rivalry, and, much to their horror, work together, even as an odd spark of attraction flares between them. Okay, this has me absolutely giddy for all of the like chaos and the mayhem and the antics that are going to happen. I feel so redundant saying like I'm so excited for this book, but I'm so excited for so many of these books. I do truly feel like this is going to have me laughing throughout the entire story. I cannot wait for the banter because I'm expecting so much banter here. I think this will be one of my top reads for October. So fingers crossed, and I also will be getting this in one of my book box subscriptions. Sorcery in Small Magics by Maiga Doocy publishes on October 15th. Next up is The Stone Witch of Florence by Rasche, and this is an adult historical fantasy. I'm always down for a plot where our FMC derives magic from runes and crystals and gems, but what really struck me here was the fact that this like deviated from what I thought it was going to be at the beginning of the blurb to being about like tracking down a thief. So this seems like a really interesting concept that I have not seen. I haven't read anything that has like Italian culture or is Italian based in a while, like in over a year, I think. So this absolutely caught my attention and I knew it had to go on the list. The Stone Witch of Florence by Rasche publishes on October 8th. Next up is This Cursed House by Sandeen, and this is an adult historical horror. In the fall of 1962, 27-year-old Gemma Barker is desperate to escape her life in Chicago. and the spirits she has always been able to see. When she receives an unexpected job offer from the Dutchin family in New Orleans, she accepts, thinking it is her chance to start over. But Gemma discovers that the Dutchin family isn't what it seems. Light enough to pass as white, the black family members look down on brown-skinned Gemma. Their tenuous hold on reality extends to all the members of their eccentric clan, from haughty grandmother Honorine to beautiful yet inscrutable cousin Fazette. And soon the shocking truth comes. The Ducans are under a curse, and they think Gemma has the power to break it. As Gemma wrestles with the gift she's run from all her life, she unravels deeper and more disturbing secrets about the mysterious Ducans. Secrets that stretch back over a century. Secrets that bind her to their fate if she fails. Okay, so all I needed to see to be really excited about this was Spirits in New Orleans. Obviously, it was going to go on the list for that. But just like my other haunted house story that I have on the list, this looks like it's going to be taking an analysis of systemic racism, of colorism, and the impacts this has had on the American South. So I'm very excited for that. I think this is going to be a phenomenal read. I'm just going to say that throughout the video. Like, I'm so excited for all of these, which is why they're on the list. But yeah, very excited to read this, which is why it's also on my seasonal spooky challenge. Next up is The Wild Huntress by Emily Lloyd-Jones, and this is another young adult fantasy. Every 5 years, 2 kingdoms take part in a wild hunt. Joining is a bloody risk, and even the most qualified hunters can suffer the deadliest fates. Still, hundreds gamble their lives to participate, all vying for the hunt's life-changing prize, a magical wish granted by the other king. Bronwyn possesses a gift no other human has, the ability to slay monsters. She's desperate to cure her mother's sickness, and the wild hunt is her only option. Gwydion is the least impressive of his magically talented family, but with his ability to control plants and his sleight of hand, he'll do whatever it takes to keep his cruel older brother from becoming a tyrant. Pryderi is prince-born and monster-raised. Deep down, the royal crown doesn't interest him. All he wants is to know is where he belongs. If they band together against the monstrous creatures within the woods, they have a chance to win. But then again, nothing is guaranteed when all is fair in love in the hunt. So I've seen the name Emily Lloyd-Jones quite a bit of late, and definitely need to pick up one of these novels, and so I think this is probably going to be the one that I pick up. It's got multiple POV, and I'm a sucker for a novel that's multiple POV. I'm also a sucker for a found family trope, and that's just what this is giving for me, is that concept of all of these different interconnecting lives that come together to create a stronger whole. So loved the concept behind this, knew it had to go on the list. The Wild Huntress by Emily Lloyd-Jones publishes on October 1st. And last but not least, we have the Woodsmoke Woman's Book of Spells by Rachel Greenlaw. And this is an adult paranormal. It's got a little bit of mystery, a little bit of romance thrown in there as well. There is an old tale woven through the mountain town of Woodsmoke about a stranger who appears as the first snow falls in winter, who will disappear without a trace as the frost thaws in spring, leaving a broken heart behind. Carrie Morgan ran from Woodsmoke 10 years ago, and the decision has haunted her ever since. Spending a decade painting and drifting around Europe, she tries to forget her family's legacy and the friends she left behind. But the Morgan women have always been able to harness the power of the mountains surrounding the town, and their spells and curses are sewn into the soil. The mountains, they say, never forget. Sure enough, when Carrie's grandmother dies and leaves behind her dilapidated cottage, she returns to renovate, certain she will only be there for one winter. She meets Matthew as the temperature dips, a newcomer who offers to help refurbish the cottage. Before long, and despite warnings from her great-aunt Cora of the old stories, Carrie finds herself falling for the charming stranger. But when the frost thaws in spring, Matthew goes missing. Carrie is convinced he's real and he's in danger. As she fights her way across the mountain to find him, she must confront all the reasons why she left Woodsmoke and decide whether the place she spent the last decade running from is the home she's been searching for. I'm already entranced by how mystical this sounds. I love this concept of the connection to the mountains. I love the family secrets and the family legacy. I love that we get this mysterious stranger, and so we do have those concepts, like I said, of mystery and of romance. But I feel that at its base and its foundation, this is going to be a story of personal growth. And I love that. I think that this is going to be a really thought-filled piece. And it is great for spooky season. The Woodsmoke Women's Book of Spells by Rachel Greenlaw publishes on October 22nd. Okay, and as promised, I am going to go through the list of all of the books that we've mentioned, plus a couple of honorable mentions that didn't make the full blurb list, but did make the publication release date list. All of these are going to be not in alphabetical order, but by their publication date. On October 1st, we have Best Hex Ever by Nadia El-Fassi. The Bog Wife by Kay Chronister, The City in Glass by Nghi. The Crescent Moon Tea Room by Stacy Savinsky, Heir by Sabaa Tahir, Inheritance of Scars by Crystal Seitz, The Kiss of the Nightingale by Addie Dinner, Make My Wish Come True by Rachel Lippincott and Allison Derrick, Make the Season Bright by Ashley Herring Blake, Model Home by River Solomon, A Song to Drown Rivers by Anne Liang, and The Wild Huntress by Emily Lloyd-Jones. For October 8th, we have A Dark and Secret Magic by Wallis Kinney, Divine Mortals by Amanda Hellender, A Grim Reaper's Guide to Catching a Killer by Maxie Dara, My Kind of Trouble by L.A. Schwartz, Red in Tooth and Claw by Lish McBride, The Stone Witch of Florence by Anna Rasche, This Cursed House by Del Sandeen, and A Vile Season by David Ferraro. Publishing on October 15th, we have The Bitter End by Alexa Donne, Legend of the White Snake by Sher, Lightning in Her Hands by Raquel Vasquez Gilland, Sorcery and Small Magics by Maiga Doocy, and Tangleroot by Kalela Williams. Publishing on October 22nd, we have The Blood Orchid by Kylie Lee Baker, The Scholar and the Last Fairy Door by H.G. Parry, Spectacular by Stephanie Garber, and The Woodsmoke Women's Book of Spells. And lastly, on October 29th, we have Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews, and For She Is Wrath by Emily Varga. All right, so it is time to brew some coffee, add even more books to your TBR, and figure out what are you reading in October. If you had a favorite from the list, let me know what your favorite is, or if there's like a favorite anticipated release that you have in October that I didn't mention, absolutely let us know what that is. I don't know that I have a favorite. Like, I'm so excited for so many of them. I think if I had to choose, I would choose Sorcery and Small Magics. Like, that just, it sounds, like, I just anticipate laughing through the whole thing. I expect the banter to be out of this world. But other than that, I am super excited for the novella by Nghi, The City in Glass. It just sounds spectacular. So, but so many good reads that I am extremely excited about. Riften can't handle it. He's like, you've been not paying attention to me for far too long. Isn't that right, baby? So, I'm gonna go give him some attention. But you guys let me know what books you're excited to read in October.